Hey there, fellow parents. Welcome to the Real Life of Parenting podcast, where we're all about embracing the chaos, sharing the laughter, and navigating the roller coaster ride of parenthood. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jenna.
And together, we're your co-pilots on this adventure.
Each episode will dive into the highs and the lows and the hilariously unpredictable moments that make parenting the wild journey it is.
So get ready for real stories, genuine conversations, and a few parenting hacks along the way. Whether you're dealing with diaper disasters or celebrating those small victories, we've got your back.
So buckle up, hit play, and let's embark on this parenting odyssey together. This is The Real Life of Parenting, where every episode is a reminder that you are not alone in the beautiful chaos of raising little ones.
Hello and welcome back to the Real Life of Parenting podcast. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we have a special guest, Cheyenne.
Hi, everybody.
And today we're going to be talking about her parenting journey, becoming a mother, and
the struggles, the ups and the downs along the way.
Yeah, and what she refers to as mom rage. So we're excited to get started into this episode.
What I guess inspired you to be on our podcast?
Yeah, so kind of the last year and a half, I've really been diving into my own healing, mentally, emotionally, physically. And kind of part of that process has been sharing my experiences. And some of those moments I do on social media, on my Instagram or my TikTok accounts. And partly because it's an art form for me that I really enjoy making these videos, like the music, the videos, the finding the words. And partly I knew that this year was going to be a big year for me and really felt prompted to document that journey. And partly because of my experience, the nuggets of wisdom that I'm gleaning from this process could be helpful to anyone, that's a bonus. And if I had seen someone talking about mom rage and some of the things that I've experienced earlier, it would have changed things for me a lot sooner in my journey. And just being able to help me release some of the guilt and the shame that goes along with that experience. So I thought that I had kind of resolved a lot of my difficulties that I've had with my parenting journey so far. But it's kind of popped its head up again recently in the last few weeks. And after I had watched your first podcast episode, I was kind of inspired to reflect on my journey again and what's been going on recently. And to just kind of explore my rage a bit deeper, because I was and I am still kind of harboring some guilt and shame about that whole experience and some of the things that I felt. And aside from my husband, I haven't really shared any of this with anyone, like my parents, my friends. I just haven't really dived into it. And so just kind of finding the freedom of releasing some of that and just being able to acknowledge it more and kind of reducing the grip of control that it has on me. And then you guys offered to host me here, and it just kind of clicked that it was a great opportunity to explore what I've been going through.
Yeah, I think that the reason we reached out is we saw your reaction. And it was a reaction to how we were kind of dealing with things in the hospital and our first podcast episode. We just assumed that you had a story to share and that it would feel good maybe to talk about it in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you guys are doing here, that it's you guys as a couple and just kind of being able, I think there's so much freedom and so much therapy and just expressing your journey and your story and the things that you've gone through. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to
That's
chat with you guys.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, we also agree with that point. We also, as a couple, with what we went through as well, it's been really helpful to talk it out, because really behind those hospital walls, you don't really talk about much in regards to that. And even opening up on here with what we had to go through as well. Some of our family, close family, doesn't understand or doesn't know what we actually went through, because we never really expressed it either. So
yeah, definitely a lot of information. Let's
Yeah.
let's start off. Let's get to know you a little bit there, Shine.
Yeah.
So what kind of things are you into these days?
These days I am momming it up 24/7. So I have two kids, two boys. Lincoln, the oldest, will be 4 next month, and Ozias, we call him Ozzy, he's a year and a half. So that keeps me on my toes for sure. Um, and then I love to read. I'm reading the Sarah J. Maas fantasy world right now. So if you know, you know. It's good stuff. Um, and then I'm actually studying right now. I'm a trained massage therapist, but I never did my like registration exam, so I'm kind of going through that process right now to be a registered therapist. And so that also takes up a large portion of my time. Just prepping to kind of get back in my career field
Nice.
and
Yeah, so I actually have been seeing like just in like your posts and stuff like that on Instagram, you're into, is it the card reading?
yeah, I do tarot and oracle card readings. I've been doing those for a few years, and I just found it like a really therapeutic way to kind of connect with myself and get some guidance. And yeah, I think it's cool.
That's
Yeah, that's
interesting.
cool.
I was just thinking, like, if you need a massage therapist, I think we know one now.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Everybody suddenly wants to be my friend.
there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
No.
No. So, how many kiddos do you have?
I've got two boys.
Yeah, what are your kids into these days?
So Lincoln, the oldest, he's into Paw Patrol, dinosaurs, construction trucks, and he loves to play hide and seek. Like every night before bed, we have to do like 4 rounds of hide and seek, even though we live in a very tiny house and there's absolutely nowhere to hide. We still continue to hide in the same spots. And then Ozzy, he's pretty chill. He's not into much, but he does like to, we have like a kid's shopping cart that he loves to push around. And then he really likes to watch the birds outside. He thinks that's pretty cool. So he just kind of
That's
sits or
cute.
like watches out the window. We've got this huge window that he likes to keep an eye on the birds.
Does he like to follow his brother or make fun of his brother?
They've just started like kind of being able to play together. They weren't
Yep.
really into each other in each other's spaces at all, but they've just started to kind of like find times where they can play together. It doesn't last long because they are immediately fighting over toys, but just
Yeah.
starting to explore with each other.
Just wait until the 18-month-old starts like savagely making fun of your 4-year-old.
Oh gosh.
Like that's what Lily does with Liam. Like if Liam's crying or whatever, like
Yeah.
she'll just savagely like go "Wah," and then she'll look and she'll smile. And I'm like, you are making fun of your brother.
Yeah.
Just trolling him.
Yeah.
He's just so mean. Well, he laughs when she cries now.
Yeah.
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 It's
Still
like
both
payback.
ways.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Yep. So, with two young kiddos, how do your mornings look like?
They're pretty chill for the most part. Lincoln's not in school yet, so we're just kind of hanging around the house in the mornings. Um, they're getting up super early recently, which sucks, but they usually will play quietly for a little bit, and I can get like a little bit more of a cat nap there. And then we do some breakfast. Usually it's the same thing every day because they're pretty picky eaters. And then I get my coffee time, so I like to just sit with my coffee. I kind of like meditate or just take some time to chill out so we can tame that mom rage. And then yeah, we just have some playtime and get into the house chores and whatever else is set up for that day.
Yeah. So how did your husband and yourself meet?
We met, it's like what, 15 years ago. We've been together 15 years. We met in high school in grade 9. Um, and I was actually interested in one of his friends. So I was like hanging around his group of friends. And then he was pretty like bold and coming up to me and just being like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Okay, like I could talk to you. Um, and then it just kind of took off from there. And we're still together. So,
That's pretty awesome, eh?
Yeah.
yeah,
Your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's
Long
been
time.
a long journey for sure,
Yeah.
but lots of fun.
Yeah.
Like half your life, eh?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Almost exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
A
you and your
fun
husband
question.
decide to win the lottery tomorrow,
Hmm.
what would you spend that on?
Oh gosh, we talk about this all the time. Eric is pretty set on, willing this into existence. Um, we would definitely pay off some student loans that are just hunting us down. And we would definitely buy a house too. I think that would be probably priority number one is buying a house. Um, like I said, we're in really cramped quarters here, and so it would just be an absolute dream to be able to buy a house. And personally, I would love to have a home chef. I think that would be really great because I hate to cook. So that might be a little splurge, depending on the wins.
I also hate cooking, so I mean, that's one thing for me too. I'm just like I hate cooking, but I can't complain because Jeff cooks like every single night.
All
So
right.
I just want someone to do the dishes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Someone to come and clean my house.
And
Yeah.
dust. We both hate
Hmm.
dusting like so much.
Really?
Try and keep the house clean with two friggin' young little ones.
Two
Oh,
little
I know.
tornadoes. Yeah.
Didn't
Impossible.
we just clean the floor?
Yep.
Never.
Um, yeah. What is your favorite part about being a mother?
My favorite part is just being able to like or re-experience parts of life kind of through them. I think kids have such a way of being able to like slow you down, bring you into that present moment. And it's just a really beautiful way that they have of grounding you. Like you can be stressed out, the house is a mess, you're trying to, get the dishes done, you're got all this like adult stress. And they'll just be like, come play catch with me, mama. And so then you're pulled from like this stress adult land and you just get to have like this beautiful moment of playing. And it's just so grounding and reminds you of what's important. And oh, she's checking things out. Um, and just kind of being reintroduced to the magic in life, like watching them find a really cool bug or, playing endlessly with a single bucket of water. Like my kids love just a bucket of water. Um, or splashing in a puddle. Like kids are still so immersed in how magical life is. And so just being reminded of that and getting to experience that with them.
Talking about the puddle there just made me remember like last time I took the dog out, I took Liam around the block with me and he was like splashing through the puddles.
Yeah. Oh,
He's never done that before. And he was just loving it.
yeah. My kids
Just a big
love
smile.
that.
Splash, splash,
We've
splash.
got like a full rain suit, and he will just run through those puddles for as long as we let him, really.
It's just like literally like Peppa Pig in my head, like
Yeah.
oh muddy puddles.
Yeah, so how was your journey in becoming a mother with both of your kids there?
Um, I feel like it was pretty similar, um, in the fact that like we had kind of planned to do a home birth with both of them, and that didn't end up happening. With Lincoln, like I said, we had planned to do a home birth with a midwife. Um, and so I was kind of at home laboring. And throughout the end of my pregnancy, my blood pressure was kind of starting to become an issue. And then, like, right at the end, I hadn't developed preeclampsia, but I was like on the verge of developing it. So we were just kind of like keeping an eye on things with that because that would, disqualify me for being able to have a home birth. Um, so I was laboring at home. The midwife ended up coming, checked my blood pressure, and it was just a little high for what she was comfortable with. So we decided to go to the hospital just to get some extra blood work, check for like proteins in my urine, that kind of thing that would coincide with preeclampsia. So we went to the hospital, which I have to say was the worst car ride of my entire life. Like, it was so painful, the worst car ride. We get to the hospital, and we had to wait a really long time to get my like blood work and urine results back, which actually ended up being just perfect. Like, it was kind of, it worked out really well because I had labored enough at that point that I was like, I want an epidural. I need the juice. Get me the juice. I've tapped, I've done my bit. Let's,
Give me the
um,
relief.
right? Get me the juice. Um, so ended up getting an epidural, and then he was born pretty quickly. Um, but with him, I had meconium in my waters, which is basically like when the baby poops in your like in utero. And so there's a concern that when they're born, they'll have like poop in their mouth or in their lungs, and it will have a like cause a breathing issue. Um, so they ended up having to like bring in the neonatal like resuscitation unit and stuff like into the room while I was pushing. And I don't even remember, like, there was more people in that room than I was aware of by far, because they had like there was my like two or three midwives, like a student midwife, there was the resuscitation unit, but I was like totally oblivious. I was like in my like epidural bliss where I was like pushing. I hadn't opened my eyes in probably hours because I was just like in the zone. But anyway, there's like this whole unit in here. He ended up being born. He was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong. So they like exited. Um, and then we spent the night in the hospital just because I had the epidural, so we had to be like there for 24 hours. Um, but yeah, he was pretty chill. Um, and I feel like it was just I say the perfect experience. It wasn't perfect, but like it wasn't super traumatic, or like I felt good about the experience
Mhm.
despite the fact that I didn't end up having the home birth. Um, and then with Ozzy, again, I had planned to do a home birth. Um, I had my midwife, like my mom, my friend, all of us here at the house. Um, and I had been laboring for not long. It was actually progressing really quickly. But in my head, I thought I had so much longer to go, because you hear these stories of women who are like, on the verge of just giving up. The doctor, the midwife checks them and they're like 1 centimeter and they're like, no. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be that case where like I think I'm ready and it's just I'm not even close. So in my head, I thought I had so much longer to go, and I did not want to do that. Um, so again, I reached that point where I was like, okay, like I've tapped out. I would like to get an epidural. Let's go to the hospital. Um, so we ended up driving to the hospital, which turned out to be a really risky drive, because he was ready. And there was just like this moment in the car. We were like driving with like me and my husband. The midwives were tailing us to drive to the hospital, which was like a 30-minute drive. Um, and meanwhile, I didn't even realize the midwives were like freaking out, thinking that we were going to end up having to pull over on the side of the road and have this baby on the road. So I don't know why they let me leave, but they must have really trusted my uterus to hold on because
Had faith in your husband to get you
oh,
there.
right, yeah. So we like gunned it into Kingston, into the hospital, and it was COVID, like kind of the end of COVID that time. So we were supposed to like go in, do like triage check-in and that kind of stuff. But I was like, as soon as they wheeled me in to emerge, I like got my first pushing urges, and I was like, you start doing that like deep growl where you're like, oh shit.
We
this
need to
is
get
about
going.
this is about to happen. So they like wheeled me upstairs really quickly. Didn't get the epidural, which sucked because he came like a freight train, let me tell you. Um, and yeah, he was out really, really fast. And but other than that, there were no like complications or anything, so we were able to go home really quickly, which was nice. And once again, like it was, I don't know, I feel like it worked out the way it was supposed to. Um, like I feel confident and I feel happy with my experiences, but even though I didn't do what I had been intending to do, it was still like a pretty positive experience both
Yeah,
times.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously you really wanted to do like a home birth,
Yeah.
and then both times something occurred
Right.
where you were like, okay, this is enough of that.
Yeah.
Um, so what kind of drove you to that decision to try it at home?
Yeah. My best friend had um she had had three babies. Um, two were done in the hospital, and then the third one was done at home. And I was like with her all three times throughout those experiences, so I was able to really like, closely experience those two different versions of the birth. And her and I both really preferred the home birth experience. Um, just because when you're in the hospital, you end up having like that pressure of being induced. And then with an induction, there's more pressure or there's more like chances of having a C-section. And that just wasn't what she had really wanted to do, but ended up in the hospital both times being induced. So that third time was just such a contrast and experience where when she had done it at home, it was so like calm and cool and collected, and it was just a very peaceful experience. Um and that's what I wanted. Like I just wanted to feel peaceful and I wanted to feel in control of my body and just be comfortable. So both times we used a midwife and then intended to do the home birth, but
Yeah,
I like that juice, you know?
yeah, life happens.
Right. Yeah.
You realize it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because they always say like, "Oh, write down your birth plan," blah blah blah,
Right.
but it's like it literally never happens the way you want it to happen.
Absolutely.
Like
Not
Yeah.
not
always.
always, but like a good amount of times you write things down and you're like, "Yeah, I want this, I want that." And then it's like it's just completely it's more or less like you're just gonna go with the flow and
Yeah.
the baby's gonna basically run the show here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Basically the same thing when they're born.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna be the boss.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it
Yeah.
all.
Like
The
your
baby
your
screaming all the time.
Instagram post that you posted, I own you now.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
So relatable. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, that is so relatable for like Lily. It makes me sick.
Yeah, I was up in her room for like 2 hours last night, waiting for her to go back to sleep.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, we're just in like the midst of like trying to wean her, night wean
Mhm.
her. And yeah, let me tell you, it ain't easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
She's demanding.
very, very
She
demanding.
gets that from somebody.
Right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. But yeah, so you do talk about mom rage quite a bit on your Instagram. So like, can you tell us like what is that? Like why did you have it, and kind of like how you feel when you have it?
Yeah, so from let me preface this by saying I am by no means a therapist or a professional. This
Mhm.
is purely my experience and just kind of research that I've done as a, concerned parent. Um, but basically, like from my research, it's kind of so mom rage is characterized by like this blinding anger where you're like, seeing red, and it might look like yelling or crying or like snarky comments, physical reactions like needing to like punch a pillow or screaming, shaking. You turn red, like your heart rate increases. Sometimes you have like an inner dialogue of really negative thoughts. Um, and then almost always it's like followed by just consuming feelings of guilt and shame and confusion and concern. Um, and I can kind of describe it as like when you shake a pop bottle and then you stick a Mentos in it. Like if you've ever seen that explode, like,
Yep.
the cap skyrockets like a bullet and then this geyser fountain explodes. that's what it feels like physically, like for me. And like you get that shaking, like just incredible pressure, and like shaking and vibrating. And, there's usually some kind of verbal expression, whether you're like yelling or growling, because you're like trying to simultaneously express this, but also suppress it. And so just this consuming energy, like you're trying to leash a tornado. Um, and typically it's the result of like, um, usually it's like having violated expectations. So either someone or something isn't doing what you want them to do.
Kids.
And or experiencing compromised needs. So like your needs as a person, as a parent, aren't being met either physically, emotionally, socially, intellectually. Like something is fueling your depletion and your overwhelm, and then some trigger happens, and sometimes it's like totally random, like it doesn't even make sense, right? Like, oh, the can opener won't turn, or like, you know something that is just so random, and your breaking point kind of manifests in this rage. And a difference between like feeling angry, like that's one thing. Like anger is a healthy emotion, right? Like it's a normal human emotion.
Yeah,
But
we
when
all get
you're
angry and frustrated,
right,
Yeah.
especially
exactly.
when the kids are screaming their heads off.
Yeah. And but there's a difference when you're acting on that anger in an uncontrolled manner. And I'm quoting the Perinatal Collective, which is actually a really good resource for any kind of like postpartum mental health issues, anything like that. It's called perinatalcollective.com. And they kind of say on there, like, as women, we're often taught not to express our anger because that's not what good moms or good girls do. But anger is a healthy emotion. And acting angry is when we snap, we say something that we're going to regret, we yell at a loved one. And in between feeling that emotion and acting on it, there's a moment of mindfulness. And that's when you pay attention to that feeling and you notice it without judgment. So you pause, you're like, oh, I'm really angry. And then you like pause and you're like, am I gonna, chew this person out, or am I gonna take a breather? And, you make a choice about what to do next. And there's nothing wrong with feeling angry about a situation. The point is that the actions that you follow are within your control. And with mom rage, it tends to not be in your control. So you're not angry, you're experiencing, an extreme of that emotion where you're no longer in control. And that's when it kind of becomes concerning or something that you need to address in a more disciplined manner.
Would
Um,
you notice, like, when you were getting to that point?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a very physical feeling, and it's a very like out of body
Hmm.
experience, especially for like I'm not normally an angry person. Like I'm very comfortable with my emotions. Like I'm a very emotional person, but I'm never angry. Like I will be frustrated or disappointed or upset. I'm never angry. And so to all of a sudden have these just like uncontrollable consuming outbursts of anger, it's a really confusing feeling, especially when those things, that feeling that you're having doesn't even like you don't identify with that
Hmm.
morally, on a very basic level. Like I don't agree with yelling at my kids fundamentally. Like I don't want to yell at them. I know the damage. I've done the research. I know the damage it causes kids' development to have an explosive parent. Like that's not who I want to be. Like I love being a mom. I love being a stay-at-home mom. I love nurturing the shit out of my kids. So
Yeah.
like it's just such a contrast to who you are sometimes. Um that like it's for me at least, it was very obvious that like something's not right here.
And when specifically did you feel like this rage, like postpartum, or was it like from the get-go after you had either one of the boys? Like who did it really affect, and how are you overcoming it now?
Yeah, so basically, I developed postpartum rage with both of my children. But it tended to be a little bit later, like it wasn't immediate. Um, I think it was more, so the first time it was around like 9 months. And then the second time it was around like 3 months. But both times I was also experiencing like postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. Um, and so this was just kind of like a ripple effect for me, basically. And my experience of it was different with both kids. So with my first, it wasn't as intense. It like occasionally I would get triggered. I'd feel really hot, like my face would get so hot. I knew I was the color of a tomato, hot to the touch. That insane pressure, like pop bottle feeling. And at that time, I was pretty good at like walking away, going outside for a breather, kind of resetting and coming back inside. But always afterwards, I'm like, that's unusual for me, you know? And at the time, I kind of like brushed it off and I was like, oh, something's probably wrong with my hormones, blah, 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 postpartum, you know? Um, but simultaneously, I was like having these thoughts of, I don't enjoy being around my kid. Like, I just don't, this isn't fun. Like, I don't enjoy him right now. And I
Mhm.
understand now, reflecting on that, that like, obviously, because I was exclusively breastfeeding. I was co-sleeping with him. He was basically up every 2 hours. He contact napped. I got up with him in the night, in the morning. I was with him all day. Like I was attached to this child 24/7. Obviously, yes, like I'm gonna need some space. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. And I was just carrying so much guilt for wanting space because I was like,
Mhm.
I'm a mom. Like, I don't need space. Like, I love my kids. I want to be there for him. I'm a good mom. I don't need to be away from him. I don't want to be away from him.
I think
And
that's something like really new parents don't understand.
yeah,
Um, if you're with your kid 24/7, it can have quite a negative toll on you. It doesn't give you the chance to have your own freedom or feel like you're your own person anymore.
It
Like you,
takes a lot of your independence
that's the
away.
big thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to that, that's definitely can cause some frustration for sure, and it can definitely develop into other things.
Hmm.
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and at this time, like it was during COVID, so we weren't even leaving the house. Like there was no mommy and me group. There was no friends coming around. Like we weren't leaving the house. Um, and I wasn't sleeping well. And that's when I started having some like health digestive issues. I had postpartum anxiety, I had depression, I had intrusive thoughts, which I just want to make a quick mention about intrusive thoughts because I also didn't know this was a thing until I had like seen a little Instagram snippet about it. Um, so there's a thing called intrusive thoughts, which it's not like normal concern, like normal parental concern, like, oh, I don't want him to fall out of his high chair. That would be bad. It's like really sudden, graphic, disturbing, like incidences playing out in your mind. And they can be really consuming, and really um, like traumatic, basically. Um,
100%.
and so there's all of these things that I was kind of going through that are feeding this feeling of rage, but I didn't recognize my rage at that time for what it was, which was both a symptom and a condition of a bigger issue. And because I hadn't come across anyone else experiencing the same thing or any knowledge about it, I just kind of like chalked it up to, my hormones are off, my marriage isn't great right now. Like I'm just, it's just normal postpartum. Um, but then shortly after this time, I started working part-time and we had transitioned him to sleeping in his own crib. I was simultaneously breastfeeding less. We were like, my husband and I were starting to reconnect. And so, kind of unknowingly, I had resolved some of the things that were leading me into this state of mom rage. Um, and so that was kind of like my experience with my first, where it was like, you just reach this point of depletion and it was kind of like manifesting in these circumstances of rage. With my second, it was a lot more severe, but so too, I would later realize, were the things feeding into it. So the second time, the rage was like, it was always there. It was either running the show or it was just under the surface. So, like, I was always yelling, I was always short fused, overwhelmed. That pop bottle feeling was just always there. And nighttime, specifically with my second, was some of the harder moments for me, where I would also have like a narrative or these thoughts where it was becoming like a really alarming moment where I was like, okay, I need to put the baby down for both of our safeties right now and just step away. And my husband was really good in those moments of like understanding, stepping in, and like, no harm was done. But those things are still happening in your head. You're still having those thoughts. And again, there were just so many things feeding into it, like both physically, the lack of sleep. He had food intolerances that we were trying to navigate. So he would have an upset tummy in the night and just either not go back to sleep, or he would be up constantly, or just end up sleeping in our bed. And with his food intolerance, because I was breastfeeding, I had to restrict my diet, and I ended up developing an eating disorder. So, like, instead of, risking eating something that would disrupt him, I just wouldn't eat. And so I was having dizzy spells. I was calling into work because I would just like, my vision would start blacking out, more fatigue. And I was so stressed at nighttime that when I did sleep, I was grinding my teeth like a cheese grater, which led to dental issues, TMJ, headaches. I was having severe anxiety at night and panic attacks because I just knew, like, as soon as I get comfortable, as soon as I relax, he's gonna wake up. And so I just couldn't relax and I couldn't go to sleep. And my health and digestive issues were getting worse. So, like, my body physically was just so irritated and so inflamed and depleted. And then mentally at the same time, like, I was grieving a friendship. I was extraordinarily lonely. I was depressed. The mental fatigue of trying to manage everyone's food preferences, a toddler that's just starting to like act out pretty severely. Um, struggling to
Yep.
connect with my baby. I was also diagnosed with ADHD, and so then there's the functional complications that brings. Like, for me, I get really overstimulated with like touch and sound. Like, I can't even wear jewelry. I don't even wear my wedding ring most of the time. And so that feeds into my irritability, my mental clutter, anxiety, physical discomfort. So basically, once again, I'm just in this overwhelmingly depleted state, and I'm having uncharacteristic, out of control anger. And at this time, I still hadn't really like put two and two together where I'm like, okay. But then I had seen this quote that said, your anger is the part of you that loves you most because it knows when you're being mistreated, neglected, or disrespected. And it was just like this light bulb moment that kind of changed my perspective of my anger and like lifted some of that shame, because I was like, oh, like my anger loves me? Okay, at least somebody does, like
Yeah.
it's trying to help me. And so it was like a tornado siren saying, like, something's wrong. We cannot continue like this, like, danger, danger. Um, so then I was kind of like, okay, what is this protecting me from? And I was able to kind of take stock of all of these things and be like, okay, I see you now. And instead of suppressing it and ignoring it and being ashamed of my anger, I took its hand and I was like, thank you for bringing these things to my attention and for trying to protect me. Now, how can we address your pain? Like, how can we fix this? And so it was just kind of a process of like combing through all of these things and like learning how to nurture myself better. And sometimes it's as simple as like, mommy's gonna finish her lunch before she goes and gets that toy for you. Like, just making sure you're having a meal. And or for me, lack of sleep is a really big, like, it just makes everything worse. So adjusting
Mhm.
nighttime responsibilities with another parent, or sometimes it's therapy to address those deeper issues, taking time to read a book that I enjoy, or like playing some video games and just chilling out. And, um, you know, overall, I found it to be a really confusing experience because, like I said earlier, like I'm not an angry person,
Yeah.
and I fundamentally don't believe in being an angry person around my kids, especially. And, it was just, I had little to no control in how my depletion was manifesting. And for me, it was just kind of coming as these moments of rage. And so, yeah, that was
That's
my experience.
definitely a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you're
Hmm.
at these like complete extremes of your emotions,
Hmm.
everything, right? Like
Yeah.
anger, frustration, you're upset,
Yeah.
all that
Your
terrible
nervous
stuff.
system is just
Yeah.
like
And then
On
you're
going
depriving
overload.
haywire.
yourself
Yeah.
love, food,
Hmm.
sleep, everything that's kind of basic.
Yeah,
And I
like
think,
basic human needs.
yeah, a lot of parents, obviously, when you're new, you lose out on the sleep,
Yeah.
but taking care of everything else and what you can like control is important.
Hmm.
Um, and recognizing the signs of when you're maybe not right in the head
Hmm.
or just struggling in general, I
Yeah.
think is understanding that point and then being able to talk about it
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
super
Or like
important.
get help when it's needed
Yeah.
is really important.
And you should always try and turn to your like
Your
closest
support
support
system.
network.
Yeah, your support system, but also I mean, obviously if you don't have a support system, I mean, there's other resources out there that can definitely help.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's very, very important. I think main point is just take care of yourself because
Yeah.
if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of your kids.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Well, like,
Yeah.
Mental health is such a big thing.
mhm,
And like a lot of people don't realize they're being affected by stuff until it gets too late.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
But
As parents, you fall into this sacrificial role where you're just carrying everything, and like that's your duty, right?
mhm.
And you just kind of, you know, pinpoint focus on caring for your kids, and everything else tends to like be background noise, including yourself. And
yeah,
like
Yeah.
hunger cues and like sleep cues and
yes,
that kind of stuff. So, and I
yeah.
Uh,
think postpartum rage is one of those things that like you don't really hear about as much. And because moms aren't supposed to be angry, right? Like they're supposed to be nurturing and calm and cool and collected, and they got everything figured out, and they got the situation handled. And so it was I had done a lot of research like when I was pregnant with my kids, but it still wasn't something that I was like aware of. And the first time I had completely brushed it off as just being like, normal postpartum, blah, blah, blah.
mhm.
And I think too, there's so much shame and guilt that you just harbor because it's so at contrast with what you're feeling and you don't want to be judged. Like, I don't love my kids any less. It's just, the human response to not being nurtured.
If you can't love yourself, it's really hard to love your kids.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think yeah, like there's a lot of good points in there. What would be maybe like the most important advice or um I guess yeah, like the most important advice for other mothers or even just parents in general feeling angry, frustration, or even in that same state that you were with the postpartum rage?
Mhm. Um, I have lots to say to you.
That's
I
okay.
would, I would say, first and foremost, that your experience is valid. What you're feeling is valid, and there's something behind what you're feeling. There is a cause that is resulting in this symptom. So it's just a matter of identifying and addressing that. Like your anger doesn't mean that you love your kids any less. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. And the guilt that you feel afterwards is proof of that. And in fact, you're probably in this position because you love your kids so much that you're running yourself dry trying to attend to everyone else's needs and just forgetting about yourself in the process. So I would say, let's take care of our kids by taking care of ourselves. And um, number two, I would say, whether or not you have a bunch of things feeding into it, like I had a long list of, shit that I was going through.
Yeah.
But we all have a different capacity, and our capacity changes, throughout the month, even if you have a uterus. Like you're always changing. Your needs are changing, just like your kids. And so just identifying what it is that you need in that moment to help you function in a healthy, thriving manner. Um, and this is the big thing, allowing yourself the permission to fulfill those things, right? Giving yourself permission to be a priority. That's was such a crucial moment for me, just being able to say, yes, you can have this time to take care of yourself. Because it felt so selfish initially. I felt so guilty for
Mm,
taking that time and setting those boundaries. But I was able to realize that me prioritizing myself is beneficial for my kids. Like I can be a better mom and a better wife and just a better general human being when I nurture myself. Um, and then also like, so identify what it is that you need, and then like what are your triggers. So for me, like with my ADHD, I get really overstimulated, so making sure that I'm wearing comfortable clothes, adjusting the lights, taking physical space if I need it, adjusting sounds, or wearing headphones if the kids are too loud. Like I always have my headphones on. um and um Lastly, I would say like talk to someone, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family member, a therapeutic service, because like number one, there's healing in sharing your experience, like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, and in expressing, in sharing with someone. Like I'm a firm believer in that. Like there's a physical and an energetic component to emotions and experiences, and speaking them is a way of both like kind of easing the cap on that pop bottle, but also sometimes just making sense of it. Because like I love to journal, and sometimes I'll sit down and I'm just like kind of feeling out of sorts. I don't even know what I'm feeling, but I just like start typing, and then it all kind of like comes out and makes sense, and I'm like, oh, and like I'm like, oh, okay, so like this happened and I'm still hung up on that, and then like I'm feeling this sort of way about this, and it just kind of like makes sense once you like start letting it flow. um but also like it's good to talk to somebody, because sometimes like we need help and it's
yep.
okay to need help. Like maybe it's help just offloading the kids for an afternoon or an hour so you can go shower, or negotiating parenting roles. Like maybe your friend has a resource to recommend, or sometimes we need professional help in learning, anger management tools, or healing those things that are fueling our rage. So like just know that it's okay to reach out to someone. And I know trust me, I know it's so scary, but it's going to help you, and it's going to help your kids in the long run. And that's what's important.
It's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's like something we touched on. It was a lot of those points of trying to figure out ways to reduce stress in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it's a spiral effect. It seems
Absolutely. Yeah.
one thing goes, the next thing
Yeah.
and it just keeps going, right? We've had those moments where we're kind of at our wits end, and we don't have that break, and we're trying to like parent the kids, and we're like, I can't strangle you.
Yeah.
Right.
I need to chill out here.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sometimes when I go to work, it feels like a vacation.
In a
Yeah.
way. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's I mean for you,
Yeah.
because I'm at home like
You've
with
been
the
home
kids.
for like the last like 2.5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm at home with the kids taking care of them full time. So I mean, I don't get much of a break. So I mean, I kind of take advantage sometimes. It's like, oh, we need groceries. Perfect. I'll go get them. And then Jeff, like,
Yeah.
sometimes he's like, oh, are we all going? I'm like, I guess.
If you want.
You're you're going for your eye appointment too. And
Yeah.
I was like, hey, do you want us all to go together? And she's like, okay, sure. And I was like, on the way there, I was like, oh, I'm sorry if you wanted your alone time. Got some pizza for dinner, so it solved some problems for us. The biggest takeaways for sure is definitely take care of yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whether it be through mental, like talking to someone, making sure you're eating properly, taking showers, just
Hmm.
getting away from the kids, even if it's for like 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah, even if you get like 5, 10 minutes, probably 5 minutes, like of even just shut eye, um, it's just, yeah, it's super, super important to take care of yourself, I think.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Talk to the appropriate people. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Include yourself in the appropriate groups where you feel supported, obviously,
Hmm.
and can take away things from other people's
Yeah.
experiences too.
So what was your favorite way to like unwind?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that. Um, I love to dance, and I started doing that really early on in my experience the second time. Um, because you just have so much energy, right? And it's not necessarily good energy because you're just like, it's all that pent up rage, but you just have so much that you need to get out sometimes because it's such a physical feeling too. And so I would like put on headphones, and in the beginning it was like angry, rage music, and you're just like, head bashing, like jumping around the room, whatever it takes to like expel this energy from your body. And then eventually, like it made a difference. It always made a difference, whether it was a little bit or a lot. And, eventually the songs turned from like angry heavy metal to like happy songs. And so now it's like it's a pretty, key moment in my day when I have my kitchen dance party, and I find it to be a really therapeutic moment for me. So
Hmm.
I love to dance.
Do the kids join in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
That's cute.
It's even better like when you can do something that like brings your stress away, but also involves the kids,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a
because that
great.
becomes like a
A good
good moment.
moment. Yeah.
Sorry, with your kids.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I know like I don't do like yoga a lot. Like I really don't do yoga. But like I think it's just kind of cool like we'll be like joking around with the kids and we'll be, joking around with them like in the evening time and whatnot and like one of them will like just kind of out of whim kind of just go and do like downward dog not even knowing what they're doing, right? It's like, "Oh, look, like Lily's doing downward dog or Liam's doing downward dog," and like the other one will just start doing downward dog like they knew
Yeah.
exactly what I was saying. Like
Yeah.
it's so cute. It's like we could do yoga together.
Yeah. No, it's nice to incorporate them into those moments. And that was a thing too. Like I found my oldest has started showing really strong feelings, and so I've been trying to like help him navigate his frustration and
Hmm.
his, toddler rage. Um, but it's like the blind leading the blind at this time. So trying to figure out my own healthy coping mechanisms, but then also being able to share those with
Yep.
him, and just kind of like learning together how to express healthy emotions.
So something we also learn is with the young kids, they have trouble communicating. They don't know how to say what they're thinking
Hmm.
or what they want, and that leads to a lot of frustration.
Yeah.
A lot of
A lot of
frustration.
frustration. But that was one thing that we learned going through the speech therapy, because remember Liam would have like these 30, 45-minute tantrums and he wouldn't calm down.
Yeah, it took us a long time to calm him down and that's something that we're going to touch on in like the next little bit as well as like Liam's a late talker. He
Hmm.
has a bit of a speech delay, so it's definitely um it's definitely helped like with the therapy there, like kind of having us like try and understand why he's frustrated
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
acknowledging that he's frustrated is like the biggest thing that we found has helped with him.
Yeah.
Um, because I shit you not, probably like 3, 4 days in, like in the block of sessions that we had, like he went from like throwing these tantrums where you couldn't get him to settle and where he would all of a sudden just settle in like between 3 to 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, whoa, this is
Yeah.
like a different kid.
Hmm.
That's a big thing with the young ones.
Yeah. It's just kind of
Hmm.
acknowledging why they're upset.
Definitely be hard.
So yeah, so how are you hoping that your story, like your journey, is going to impact others?
I just want them to know that there's someone out there who might be going through the same thing. Because like I had said earlier, like there's just if I had seen somebody sharing their experience, it would have helped me a lot sooner because I didn't realize that mom rage was a thing. I still remember the very first time that I had seen someone talk about it on social media. I was like scrolling through TikTok, and then there was this mom who was like talking about, doing cold plunges to help manage her mom rage. And I was like, wait, what? Like, that's a thing? Oh, and then she was like describing how it felt. And I was like, oh, okay. So, like, what I'm feeling is it's a valid thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so just being able to like validate someone else's experience through my own and just kind of give them that, like, I'm here. I know what you're going through. Like, your experience is valid and like we can get through it kind of thing.
Definitely a lot to take in with this episode.
Yeah.
Um, there's definitely a lot of emotions.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I do know, I will mention Cheyenne's page, the Coral Aligned. I also follow it as well. It's a really good page for relatable material. Um, like I think I literally like every time you post something new, I'm always there looking to see what you're posting.
Aw.
But yeah, and like sometimes when you're posting, like I'm like, yep, I feel you. Like I am there.
Mhm. Oh, that makes my heart so
So
happy.
yeah, so I think honestly the Coral Aligned is a really, really good page to follow for people that
That's
want to
on the
have relatable experiences.
that's on the Instagrams.
Instagram, yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Instagram or TikTok, but I tend to do a little bit more on Instagram.
perfect. Yeah.
TikToks or the Instagram.
And then I think I have one more question.
Yeah.
What is something that you weren't told about parenting that you wish you were told before having kids?
Oh
We stumped her.
gosh. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh. Okay, we're gonna have an awkward pause while I think about this for a
That's
second.
okay.
Um, Something I
I,
wish I would have known.
I can't even answer that question right now.
Hmm.
We can come back to it. We can
Okay,
ask
no,
you a
no, no,
couple
wait, wait,
more.
wait. I got it. I got it. The thing I wish I would have known is that you will always know best what is right for you and your child. You, as a parent and as a mother, especially, like you just have this innate magic in you that is going to know your kid, it's going to know your family, it's going to know you, and you'll always know what's up and what's going to work for you guys. And even if you don't know what's going to work for you guys, like you'll have that inkling as you kind of sort through things because like I was pretty confident as a parent, like I knew what decisions were going to, what kind of things we wanted our family to do or look like or how we were going to raise our kids. But the only time that I would be uncertain is if somebody else like voiced their doubt or like questioned it. And I was like, oh, maybe like there are, maybe they are right. Like maybe I should look at some other things. Meanwhile, I had been so confident before. And so there are a million ways to do things. There are a million ways to, different parenting techniques or ways to start table foods and blah, 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 and like sleep methods and yada, yada. Take everyone's advice with a grain of salt and come back to your own, capabilities and what you feel in your heart. And that will be your best guidance.
Yeah, I feel like not every sleep training method or like night weaning even right now, like every baby, every kid is different. So like what works for you is what works for you, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But like not every kid's gonna have the same
Experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome advice.
Yeah.
For
What
me?
does
Oh, okay.
what does the life of Cheyenne look like in 5 years?
In 5 years. Oh, okay. In 5 years.
Like
Okay.
where would you like to be in 5 years?
Here's the manifestation plan, right? We're going to have bought our house, right? We're going to be living in our house that we own, and I will be working as a massage therapist, helping people heal in their own way. And I will also be at home with the kids still part-time. I might even be homeschooling, but we're going to test that out. We'll see how that goes for us. Um, and I just want to be having fun in 5 years. Like I've kind of spoken with Eric about this. We feel like so much of our life thus far, like even as a couple, has just been in survival mode and trying to like figure our shit out and like what we're gonna do with our lives. And now I'm at this point where like I feel pretty confident about where I'm at, what I'm doing, who I am, and now I just want to like have fun. I just want to enjoy life. So hopefully I'm helping people in my house having fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of relatable though. About the survival mode thing. Like I
Mhm.
haven't really felt like we haven't been not in survival mode for like
Survival mode, yeah.
the last like maybe year and a half. Like it's been feeling kind of comfortable.
Comfortable, but like
Also, the world is erupting.
yeah,
Exactly.
Right?
and it's really hard because like daycare is so expensive
Mm-hmm.
and like it's like I would be literally working to pay for daycare. So it's like, okay, well, why
Yeah.
bother work then?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where we've been at
Yeah.
for the last little bit. So we've been, surviving off of one paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
literally. Um, but yeah, like I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's pretty much it.
Us
Yeah.
millennials got it rough.
Yeah.
We got the rough hand.
Everything you fell in love with as a kid has been completely phased out.
Right? But it might be starting to come back around if TikTok is to be believed.
Can you imagine trying to do like a thing like this over dial-up?
Oh god.
Oh.
Waiting. Got mail.
Just like the MSN chats.
Goodness.
I think,
Like it feels like literally so long ago.
I think I had like
Right.
10 different like LOLs on there.
Yeah.
Stupid
I
shit.
want like the sparkly one or the one that goes like this.
The rainbow one. Kids
Oh
these days have it too
gosh.
easy.
Do you remember those MSN days though? Like that was the shit.
Yeah.
BRB.
Yeah, BRB.
Yeah.
We were talking about this
You
earlier.
were saying TTYL?
No,
Yeah.
TTFN. Yeah, ta-ta for now.
And of course, I was always the one with like the super emo like lyric in my bio thing. Right? Like,
I think I was one of those two, to be honest.
Yeah.
Some Linkin Park in there.
Yeah, you just take
Yeah.
a picture of
It's so
yourself and
hard.
put like the lyrics to like a song in there, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
some broken heart love thing that I
Yeah.
could not even relate to because I was like 10.
It just sounded cool at the time.
Right?
Fallout Boy.
Yeah.
getting that popularity.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. I think that covered a lot of it. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share my story and just to chat with you guys. It's nice just to like talk to an adult sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we absolutely enjoyed our time with you as well, Cheyenne.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I will mention for everyone, check out Coral Aligned, her Instagram page. It is honestly, it's something to see. Yeah.
I'll say it
Thank you.
does take a lot of bravery and courage to be able to share your story, especially when there's a lot of sensitive information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're gonna wrap it up for today.
So that's our guest, Cheyenne. And
Thanks
I'm
for
Jeff.
having me.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm Jenna.
And this is the Real Life Parenting Podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.